I'm making my Mexican chocolate babka. It's swirly and sweet and a little spicy. And babka is essentially the beauty queen of the coffee cake world. To get started on my dough, I'm gonna add 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour to my mixer bowl. This is basically the dough that I use for all of my babkas. I'll add 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of instant yeast. What differentiates babka is that it's made from a yeasted dough. So it's more bread-like in texture as opposed to those crumbly, cakey coffee cakes. I'll add 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt and a little cinnamon for warmth. That's it for my dry ingredients. I'll whisk this together. I am obsessed with babka. It is a Jewish Eastern European loaf-shaped coffee cake, and typically the filling is either chocolate or cinnamon. But with this Mexican chocolate version, I'm essentially combining the two and then adding some chili powder for some spiciness. It's going to be marvelous. That's it for my dry ingredients. I'll mix up the wet ingredients. I've got 1/2 cup of whole milk that's warmed slightly to help the yeast work, and 2 large eggs. And that'll add beautiful richness. I'll whisk this to combine and pour it right into the dry ingredients. I'll mix this until all the dry ingredients are hydrated. I'll grab my butter. I'm gonna add 6 tablespoons of it, a tablespoon at a time. It's just gonna make it soft and supple and gorgeous. Okay, it's getting there. My last pat of butter is in there and the dough is cleaning the bowl, which is what I'm looking for. And then I'll knead this for a few more minutes until it's smooth and still slightly sticky. This dough is looking stunning. It's so smooth. I can smell the butter and cinnamon. I've got a clean bowl. I'll add a drizzle of oil so that the dough doesn't stick. And I'll stretch the dough into a ball to get a smooth, taut surface. I'll place it face down into my bowl, smush it around, and then turn it back over so that it's completely coated in the oil. I'll cover this up and let it rise until it's doubled in size, and then that time, I'll make my filling. My filling is gonna have chocolate, cinnamon, and a little bit of chili for some heat. I'm gonna start with 6 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter. I'll sweeten it with 3/4 cup of sugar, some cocoa powder, cinnamon, chili powder, and a pinch of salt to bring out all the flavors. And I'll mix it all together. Anytime I make babka, I have to hide it from Bernie because she's a total babka fiend. I remember the first time I made it, she took her slice into her secret fort and then finished it and then threw a tantrum because she was done. I totally get it because every time I finish my babka slice, I throw a tantrum in my head. Okay. And lastly, I'll drizzle in some neutral oil just to make it a spreadable consistency. It adds such great moisture that'll make the layers truly magical. I'll stir this up. I love that dark brown color. Let me grab my dough. He's so puffy and happy. I'll turn this dough out onto my counter. Oh, that's so soft. And I'll roll my dough out to a wide rectangle that's 10 inches tall by 22 inches wide. So the dough will be quite thin, but that means more layers. Looking good, looking good. Perfect. I'm ready to spread on my filling. I'm gonna use all but 2 tablespoons of it. I'll come back to that later. And I'll use an offset spatula to get a thin, even layer all over the surface of the dough. I'll leave a tiny border at the top though, which will help me seal the roll. Oh, this is so satisfying. I love the contrast of the dark chocolate with that lighter beige dough. So the next step is to roll this up like a jelly roll. I want a nice tight roll to lock all that filling in. It's looking good. And I'll just pinch these edges to seal the roll shut. And I'll place this roll seam side down. And now, oftentimes, when you see a babka recipe, the next step is to cut this down the center lengthwise. But this is how I like to do it. It's a little different and a little bit less messy. So I just cut my roll in half. And then I'm gonna spread my remaining filling over one of the rolls. It's just layers upon layers of chocolatey goodness. Looking good. I've got a buttered loaf pan that's also lined with parchment paper, which will help me remove the babka after it bakes. And now I'll twist my 2 logs together. So I'll just place one on top of the other. This doesn't have to be perfect. Babka is rustic beauty at its best. Now I'll give it a hug and transfer right to my loaf pan. This looks awesome. I'll cover it up and let it rise for another 30 to 40 minutes, and then I'll brush with some heavy cream and bake at 350 degrees for 50 minutes until golden. Oh my good gosh, geez. Look at those curves. I'm gonna finish with some simple syrup. This is just equal parts sugar and water that I brought to a boil. And this will add more shine and stickiness to the top and a little more sweetness. Wow, okay. I'll let this cool and then I'll cut it up into thick slices. Hello. Okay, here I go. I'm gonna go straight to the center because that's the best part. So chocolatey and rich. I better hide this from Bernie. Otherwise there won't be any left for brunch club.